Hi, my name is Phil. I like talking about politics, and welcome to the second in what's probably going to be a fairly numerous mini-series on this week's political shenanigans as we have the crucial Brexit vote. So we've now had the first one. As expected, it's been defeated. We knew it was going to be defeated anyway. The ERG would vote against it, of course, and the opposition MPs will vote against it. We can have a look at the actual results before I go through what... Sorry, Theresa, I just covered your face up. Never mind. Before I go through what I think is going to happen now, and indeed what Theresa May herself said is going to happen. So, in favour of it, we had 235 Conservative MPs, by the looks of it. Now, that is more than voted last time. It's about an extra 50. So, it reduced her arrears by about 100. But as you can see there, that is still a margin of 149 votes. In terms of support she got, there were 4 independent MPs, which I think is a bit more than last time. I think there was one that supported it last time. And 3 Labour MPs. I think they're the same ones who voted for it last time, if we're honest. And then everyone else voted against it. That is allowed to vote against it. You will notice if you add it up, if you're sneaky, you'll say, oh, that doesn't add up to 650. You have to bear in mind there are some MPs that do not vote. Sinn Féin MPs don't vote because they do not take their seats in Westminster. And there are several MPs who have official roles within the Commons, such as the Speaker, Deputy Speaker, that also don't vote. And also you have a few little helpers on the night. But the idea is it balances out. So like there's 2 people who would have voted yes, 2 people who would have voted no, and they go out to do the counting, basically, type thing. So yes, it's a heavy defeat. Surely this is one that Theresa May would accept is a proper defeat now. Now, I didn't watch this live because I was doing something else. I was doing another stream. But when I watched the video of her standing up, my God, she's lost her voice. She's proper hoarse. And it's not like she's been talking a lot. I'm quite concerned about this. Like, what she lost her voice doing? Because what she came up with yesterday was secured 2 months ago. So... what? But anyway, let's go on to what she actually said. So she said in the Commons that tomorrow they will debate the possibility of leaving the EU with no deal on March the 29th. As she said last week, she's just basically confirming, yeah, I'm not going back on that. But here's what's really annoying for me. So, first of all, she said she'd allow a free vote. That's not annoying me. That was obvious. She's going to allow a free vote in her own party. Of course she is. Remember, everything she's doing is to try and avoid a split in her party. And at the end of the day, she couldn't do otherwise. And it doesn't matter anyway. She knows that the vast majority are not going to vote for it. In fact, you could argue to a certain extent it helps her out. Because if hardly anyone votes for the no deal, it's like her way of saying to that hard right of the party, you have got no democratic mandate here. They won't accept it, of course. But it is normally it's an act of humiliation for a leader of a party, never mind a prime minister, to give a free vote on such an important issue. Usually free votes are for matters of conscience where the party itself doesn't have an official line, you know, like in the manifesto. But of course the Conservatives have a manifesto which promised this particular deal. At the same time, you could argue it did say no deal is better than a bad deal. Her deal was considered by Parliament a bad deal. So maybe actually if she were directing them, she should direct them to vote for no deal. But she's not. Her motion is going to be that Parliament rejects no deal on the March the 29th. So obviously in this particular case, it's the ayes that will win it because it'll be people in support of her motion. However, that's not if that was the motion, if that was it, purely it, you would think, yeah, okay, that's what you promised last week. But it's not, right? So the other thing is when she stood up to speak, what got me groaning initially, although there was slightly better news later on, is she said, look, the situation is the best way to leave the EU is, I'm totally committed to delivering the result of the referendum. The best way to leave the EU is with a deal. I still believe that that is the way forward. And she further said, and I still believe that's possible. At which point I went, no, she's going to try and get an extension to carry on negotiating her dead deal. But don't worry, that's not what it is. Maybe, sort of. So in her motion, what she said is that she will ask Parliament to reject leaving the EU without a deal on March the 29th, but also to confirm that Parliament agrees that the only way we can avoid no deal is by agreeing a deal with the EU. No, that's not giving Parliament a proper choice. So now she's forcing people to vote against a no deal, but to vote for, so that then she can say, you all said we should get a deal. So actually, I'm going to go and request an extension so that we can negotiate a different deal. That's not necessarily what Parliament will be voting for. How sneaky is that? How sneaky. But that's what she's doing. So yes, so it's going to totally subvert what people in Parliament will actually be voting for. It is an unfair motion, but then politics is not fair, is it? Anyway, if that extension is passed, then what she says she'll do, of course, is then on Thursday, she confirmed that there'll be another debate and vote on whether to ask for an extension from the EU to Article 50. But here's where it got a little bit interesting. So then what she said is, she said, but the EU will want to know the reason for the extension. This, by the way, has been backed up by the EU saying, yeah, we want to know why. So it's going to be put to the test. So she said, the UK will have to answer the question of why we want the extension. And she said, does it wish to revoke Article 50? Fairly muted response to that. Then she said, does it wish to seek another referendum? Lots of cries of yes. Then the Brexiteers on the government benches mostly worked out what was going on. No, no, no. Started shouting no. Drowned it out. I have to say drowned it out, but that doesn't necessarily mean more people, just louder. But it was, you know. So it was like, yes, no. It was so funny. And then the third thing she said, or does it want to leave with a deal, but not this deal? So at that point, she is actually admitting that her deal is dead. Thank goodness for that. Unfortunately, she is still saying that we can get some deal. Now, the other thing about this is, as she was proposing these questions, she said Parliament is going to have to answer these questions. But then I was thinking to myself, so when is Parliament going to be asked these questions? You know, because she's not proposing, as far as I can tell, that on Thursday, as well as asking for an extension, that question gets put to Parliament. In which case, what's going to happen after Thursday? Is she going to go to Brussels or Strasbourg or wherever and say, hey, we'd like an extension, please? And then they say, yeah, for what reason? And she goes, I don't know. I haven't asked them. Is that seriously what she's proposing? Surely those questions have to be asked on Thursday. Surely there's got to be 4 motions put forward on Thursday, because we all know tomorrow's. But I have got something interesting to talk about tomorrow, by the way. It's not going to be the no deal vote, because that's not happening. The vote is happening. The result is obvious, even more obvious than today's. So yeah, so she can't be proposing that happens. So she's going to have to say surely, but she's not saying this. There'll be a vote on whether we seek an extension or not. If we do seek an extension, then she'll be saying, right, what is our reason? Surely there've got to be votes on that. Even if it's just indicative votes, what is our reason for doing it? And whichever gets the most votes wins. And it's not the ideal way to do it, but surely that's some way to do it. Maybe it's that none of them get an overall majority, in which case, I don't know. But anyway, it does at least mean that her deal, as Jeremy Corbyn put it, is dead. She accepts that. Great. So, pursuing another deal. So obviously, it was a muted response to just revoking Article 50. No one's saying that. Seeking the referendum, it's quite clear that's not going to be her line, because that is not going to help her keep her party together. So then she wants to waste our time negotiating another deal. And when I say waste our time, it's not because there is no deal that couldn't get in a majority. Oh yeah, there is. You know, because a different deal, the thing is, a different deal, surely by necessity, has to involve more detail on our intended future relationship. All this withdrawal deal was was agreeing to a transition period and what to do with the Irish border if we didn't come to agreement at the end of that transition period. That's all it was. It didn't mention really anything about where we intended negotiations to go after that. Surely there would at least have to be a statement of intent from the UK government as to what it wanted to negotiate for. I mean, for example, Jeremy Corbyn made it clear again today. You know, it's quite baffling when, even though I'm not in favour of his Brexit strategy, you know, the Conservatives keep saying, they've saying it as recently as yesterday, well, why don't Labour say what they want then? They do keep saying what they want, and he said it again. He wants a customs union, a permanent and comprehensive customs union. Yes, the details of that, he can say what he wants, but that has to be negotiated. And that, of course, could solve the backstop, depending on the details. He wants access to the single market. That's fairly obvious, even though he keeps talking about not being in it. But we all know that the only way you get access to the single market is being in the single market. You need to arrange some sort of, you know, free trade deal effectively. And that means that businesses could trade safely. We miss out on our mythical trade deals, but never mind. And a guarantee of protections, rights for people in this country, aligned with EU protections. So that's all fairly straightforward. That's basically been in the EU in all, you know, in all but name, really, isn't it? Without a say in parliamentary elections, which I'm not in favour of, but he is at least saying what sort of deal he would like to negotiate. And you could easily change the withdrawal agreement to say, yeah, we're going to be committed to a customs union, access to the single market, and a guarantee of protections and rights along, you know, aligned with the EU's, and we don't leave the EU until we've agreed such a deal. You know, you could easily come up with a group. Yeah, the EU would go for that, definitely, because then we'd be in the EU until the UK actually agrees to something. Simple. The problem is, of course, that although that could command a majority in the House, the hard right don't support those proposals. Now, she doesn't need their votes to get that deal through, but she doesn't care about the deal, the country or its people. She cares about the party, that's it. And no decision on a future relationship will keep her party happy. So what sort of deal does she imagine she's going to renegotiate? Because this whole withdrawal agreement and all her red lines weren't about what she believes is best for the country. Her red lines were 100% about making the deal seem like it could give both factions in her party what they wanted. And here is the issue. I'm not saying that her party is clearly, as we can see today, not split down the middle. You've got the ERG, which is a party within a party. They are the only reason why she's not ignoring them, because she easily could, is because they seem serious about splitting the party. They care less about the party than their own political aims. In fact, quite frankly, I don't believe, and it's a belief, it's a perception, I don't believe they care about the party at all. I think these are really UKIP politicians who saw that UKIP is a dead end. There's no way to get what you want in UKIP, but actually the Conservatives there is. So I think they only joined the Conservatives to get their political aims achieved, which are not the political aims of the party at large. Although, of course, it's a natural home for them to find themselves in it. They didn't just pick it randomly because it's the party that's mostly in government, but because actually their beliefs do sit somewhere in that spectrum. But, you know, they want to commit everyone to it. So I don't see any deal being possible. We're just going to waste more time. We're just really going to waste more time. But, so what we're going to discuss tomorrow, because I'm afraid the poll looks like it is definitely going to be a Friday or Saturday discussion. So as a final aside, the government has said, because the burning question now is, what is going to happen now? Because at the moment, no deal is the most likely. The Prime Minister is still manoeuvring, and Jeremy Corbyn as well. We've got to remember, these are the two key figures that could steer us in a different direction. Neither of them are steering us towards a referendum, another referendum. Jeremy Corbyn, even though he promised to support such a thing, and in theory, when Theresa May asks Parliament if they want to support another referendum, he should be directing Labour MPs to support it, because he promised that he would. And that would be interesting, because it would get an awful lot of opposition support. It might not need that many Tories. I need to do the maths on that. But he'd be breaking his word if he even gave a free vote on that. And he certainly can't whip against it. He has to whip for it. But he's steering us towards the alternative deal because that's what he really wants. Theresa May is steering us away from the referendum because she thinks it'll split her party. She may be right. So no deal at the moment is the most likely. Because at the end of the day, what Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May are both doing, even though they're not deliberately steering in that direction, because they're steering opposite directions, the net effect, if we resolve the forces, is to go over the cliff edge in a few days' time. So then the Irish border problem becomes very, very serious. And the government has said it's going to publish its plans for a no-deal Brexit Irish border solution tomorrow. Let's hope it's not more fantasy. So I intend to be able to pick through those plans tomorrow evening and to bring you tomorrow's video on that because I can't imagine that the vote tomorrow is going to be that interesting, other than to note who actually votes against it. Because it will be almost no one. In fact, it will be a motion she's putting forward to Parliament that will actually get overwhelming support. She'll feel quite pleased. But anyway, that's my take on the events of this evening. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe for further content, and click the bell notification as well. Until next time, I'll see you later.